So we're going to be going outside, as I mentioned, to do an exterior. But what we're going to do is I've basically placed some lights inside that we're going to bounce off the ceilings to give the windows some light, because the majority of your exteriors that you see, the windows are dark when you're shooting in the daytime, and it's kind of looking at somebody with their eyes closed. When you can light the windows inside, which takes a lot of strobe power if you're shooting a daylight shot outside, then the house becomes more friendly and more inviting because the windows just aren't black and dark. So we'll need to probably bracket a little bit to see how much light we're getting out of these, but basically we've got 2,400 watts in each room, so it should be enough to give us about 8 or 11 coming out of the windows. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over just a little bit. As you can see, we have a little flag situation there that they have up. So I'm going to come over just a little bit so that kind of clears the building, and we're going to kind of work with that. Also, Dennis, if you can take that one light that's in the kitchen, the one that has a small backlight, and let's take it and put it right inside, like where your room is, and bounce it on that wall right there where that light is. See there? So that we'll get a little light on that. Okay. All right. Like I had mentioned before, one of the reasons that we picked this a little bit is because it does have a couple of things that we're probably going to have to retouch. We've got these props holding up the trees because they were fairly new when they came in. We've also got this sign which we'll move out of the way, and these little things that are in the yard, the security things and that, we'll move those as well. Also, we're going to do just a quick test flash to see how our lights are looking inside. Looks like we're getting some pretty good bounce light in there. Yep. Okay, I'm going to run this up a little bit. Well, right now it's telling us 125 at 16. That's just about, it looks just about right. Do one little test here. And looks good. Well, the windows upstairs, what you're going to have is we're going to move the lights that we have there in the bottom. We're going to move those to the back because if you remember inside where it has that walk around inside, that basically what you're seeing when you see up there would be the ceiling in there. So basically, once we have, like I said, we brought a smaller lighting package today, but once we have that exposed, then we'll go in and take those lights that we're bouncing here inside, we'll take those into the inside and bounce those up as well. Dennis, if you can go upstairs, let's lower these blinds in the right-hand windows up there, so that those basically have some light in them. Also, when you're shooting, there seems to be they call it magic hour or magic light, and there's a time that I find right at dusk. Maybe there's a 10 to 15 minute window where the ambient light that's on and the available light that you have that is still around at dusk is pretty well balanced, and it's a short window. It's about 10 minutes that you can shoot and almost not have any layering. I'll show you some examples that we did of that for Met West over in Tampa, and we caught it perfectly at that magic hour, and there's no layering. It's just everything was balanced perfectly at that time. It's easier to do that when you're there again too, just like a portrait, where your structure, your building, whatever you're shooting, is facing the sunset. If you're trying to do that where the building is backlit, then the range of exposure is too bright, and if you go to get a nice color in the sky, then your building is totally black. So if you're going to try to do that magic hour, it needs to be where your building is facing towards the sunset and not the sunset behind the building. All right, so I'm going to take this card inside now. Well, As you can see, our basic exposure, which we'll come in and do Nice crop on this. And sometimes I'm not too concerned about the perspective, as I've tilted up with this to get a little more sky. And by doing that, we can correct this parallax in Photoshop. Basically go to Edit and go to Transform, and you can basically straighten the building back out and continue the shape and the structure. As you can see now, we've got some light inside the windows here where we were lit. We'll now take and do another exposure. We lowered these up top, so these will have some shuttered light. And I'm now going to move these lights that we have down here that basically lit these windows, as you can see here. And I'm going to move those into the back so that they illuminate this roof area, basically that you'll be able to see that in the window as well. I'm going to take these lights now, and I'm going to light that upstairs area with them, because I've lit these down first, and then we'll light those ones up top. And I want to get a little bit of that up there as well. All right, so we've now moved our lights to the upside, and as you can see, when I do my test flash, if you want to kind of turn and look up towards the windows there, you can see the light basically that we're going to have inside the windows. Basically what we'll do is we'll take and do pretty much the same thing that we did before, and we're going to layer in the windows, and the other upper brackets where we have more light, we'll go into the porch area and lighten those up a little bit, and of course add the windows in now up top where we can move the lights for that as well. Okay, now that we've done the interior shots, we're going to do the exterior, and like I had explained prior, we did that in two different ways, where we basically did some lighting inside so that the windows don't look dark, and I'll show you that whole process, as well as we took the flag out and a couple little things that were in the fronts, and we corrected the perspective of the shot as well, because keep in mind, if your lens and you want to get more sky and you can't get the full width of the foreground, if you need to tilt your camera up, that's okay, because you can correct the parallax within Photoshop and straighten the image back up. A lot of times you see a building that looks like this. Well, within Photoshop, you can actually straighten that by perspective or distort, and use that tool to basically straighten the image back up, which you'll see in the one that we do here for the exterior. When we initially shot the shot, this is what we had. And the actual perspective of the shot, as you can see, to get what we needed in the sky that I wanted, you can actually see that the house has a little bit of tilt to it. So in our final, you can see that we've corrected that. You know, if you took your tools and you went in, you drew your line here now, you could see that this is straight. And from initially, we're just going to kind of go down through the layers so you can kind of see what we did. Here's what we did with the sky. We made the sky a little darker, a little more interesting. Here's the windows. You can see where we can make them lighter or darker. It's subtle, but these are actually lit inside. Here we have the porch windows. As you can see, there was a little highlight right here from the outside that basically that was taken out. Now you can see this area up in here as well as the inside. Now this is where we had our strobes inside, but you could expose for that if you didn't have strobes. But here's your difference here. You can see now your detail in your shadow areas and a little light up in here as well. There was a highlight in the glass in the front door, as you can see here, and we took that out so you can kind of see in. Here's an area up in here underneath the soffit here on the top of the house where we've actually taken and added a little curve to that. Here's where there was a flagpole here where we've cropped in. You can see the flagpole here where it was kind of taken out. That was taken out. We added a palm tree there. Here's where we cleaned up the sidewalk a little bit. Added a little detail in there. A lot of times when you're working with cement and things in the foreground or anything light, if you can darken a little bit, then it draws your eye to your main focus, which is your house. Here again too, we've added a little texture into the bricks. In the original exposure, they were a little light, so we brought a darker exposure in and just added a little texture into the bricks in here to make it a little more pleasing. Here's our There's our final. So as you can see, we've made quite an improvement on the exterior of the house. All right, so we're going to wrap it up now that you've seen the techniques that we've used for the methods and applying the layering and all of that for the various shots. A couple of key things would be, again, your pre-production prior to doing your location shooting. And of course, that's your shot selection and picking a good time of day to shoot your exterior. If you're wanting to have a really nice, colorful front of your location, make sure your light is going to be at an appropriate time. If you're doing a dust shot, make sure that you have, basically from a pre-production standpoint, check your sunset times and that, take into consideration daylight savings and when you've scouted and when you come back. Again, these techniques can be applied whether you have lights or not. As we've showed in some of these, we didn't use any lights. The most important tool that you'll have is your tripod, because you do need to have your camera locked off in order to do this, because if your camera moves during your layering process and doing your exposures, your layers won't match up and you won't be able to do it. It'll be everything will be soft, if you will, because nothing matches up. This technique can be applied to, again, any type of location, exteriors, golf courses, your grandma's kitchen, a barn, anything that is considered architecture or that you might want to shoot in that arena. You can also use this technique, the layering technique, to basically draw emphasis to an area. For instance, if you're on a golf course and maybe the clubhouse is the most important thing, you can actually take, by the layering, and basically darken just those areas a little bit by curves or your different exposures, as well as the sky, to make your clubhouse just a little bit lighter, which your eye is automatically drawn to that. So you can control the viewer's eye by your layering and that technique to your lights and darks. Again, hope you enjoyed the class. I'm Richard Riley, Riley Productions, for Kelby Training.